you lead us.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you this morning. Thank you for the many blessings that you have given us. Thank you for the moisture that you have sent. And Lord, you know our needs, and you know that we need more. Lord, just be with those people that have the COVID-19 and just help them to get better, and be with those that aren't able to be here this morning. Guide us and direct us in all that we do, and forgive us for our sins. For we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Guess whose turn it is? Caleb? Teach us, my brother.
Gotta gather my stuff right there.
Any envelope?
Way back, there's all envelopes back there.
Just remember you're on camera.
Thanks for that brochure, Bob.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna wear my mask like everybody else.
No. It is odd looking out at a bunch of masks, and it's something that's hard to get used to. I'd say it's good to see your smiling faces, but I don't, you know. It's interesting times we live in. Why do we wear a mask? Because they told us to? There you go.
So live wisely.
To live wisely. You've been looking ahead. Now, what are some reasons in general that we wear a mask? Whether it's a medical mask or any other kind, a Lone Ranger or protection? To hide our identity sometimes? Maybe to make us feel braver? There's those metaphorical masks that we wear too, that we hide behind. Sometimes we've got kind of a front that we put on. Or maybe I'm the only one. But I just couldn't help but do some thinking about masks. And it's just interesting when we choose to take them off, and who we decide to trust and to let close to us, and who's not a threat in our hearts. And I just want to encourage us when we're here to let down our guard in our mask, and to be open with each other, and be able to be real with each other and admit our faults, and get some practical good out of it. And y'all may be different from Houston, but we make mistakes here. And that's part of life. But as Brother Jerry mentioned, living wisely is the topic. So at a lot of churches, they'd go through and find who was the most qualified to teach. Here it just happened to be my turn. So I'll find my spot in the book here. Those of you who don't know, I've had a rough couple of weeks. I've been sick and been battling not any COVID stuff, just muscle and joint issues, and I've been into the doctor a few times and gotten some prescriptions and stuff, and I felt sorry for myself. And we forget in a hurry how blessed we are to be healthy, and those things that we have. It's easy to take for granted until we don't have it. And it gave me another opportunity to realize how blessed I am to have Bonnie and the boys taking care of me, and Bonnie cooked for me, and I usually wasn't able to eat till the evening, but I'd eat one good meal a day. She'd take good care of me, and it made me think about when the shoe was on the other foot. It's been a little while back, but Bonnie got sick, and when I'm sick, I'm not real particular. I want something, and it doesn't usually matter what. But Bonnie, she gets a craving when she's sick, and a lot of times it's for pizza. And I'm not gonna say good. I've gotten better at making homemade gluten-free pizza. But she threw a kink in things, and she wanted something different this last time. She wanted this pasta bake, and it's kind of an Alfredo sauce, and it's got spinach, and they're already grown and they know how it turned out. But she said, I've got the recipe card in there. You just go in there and follow it. I said, no, I don't think this is a good idea. She assured me it was fine and I could just follow the directions. So here we go. And I'm doing good now. And I get it out, and there's just a big old pan there, and I pre-grease it, and I do the little sauce, and I'm really doing good. And I go all out. Bonnie's got her garden, she's got basil growing in it, and all these other herbs. I don't even know what they are, to be honest, but I get them gathered up, and I get her she got these scissors that do this thing, and I cut up the herbs like I'm supposed to, and I got this. I'm gonna do good. And I go putting it in, and of course, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Emerald. He was a chef some years back. He had a television show. I didn't see him very often, but I thought it was cool because he had a special spice he'd sell you, and we throw it in there and go, bam, bam. And so if one's good, two's got to be better. Bam, bam, I'm getting it spiced up, and I'm doing pretty good with all that. But then we get to some technical stuff, and you're supposed to put it in, and then you put some cheese and some sauce, and then you put in some more of the lasagna noodles and this and that. And I'm thinking, there's no way. It says 2 on the recipe card. Well, it was meaning 2 layers, and I think I'm supposed to fit 2 boxes of lasagna in this thing. So I get them crammed in there, and it's out the top, and the stuff's not covered. But I tried, and I do the time you're supposed to cover it and the time you're not. It didn't turn out well. Now the sauce was pretty good, but the noodles that weren't covered, they were kind of brittle. And the ones that were, they were pretty chewy. I tried adding some extra milk, and I tried cooking it some. Didn't help. Didn't help. The cats and the dogs, they enjoyed it, but they've had better. But, life is kind of that way. God gives us a recipe, and how well we follow it has a lot to do with the outcomes we get. And that's kind of what living wisely is about, is learning to follow those patterns that'll work, that He's established for us, and realizing that it doesn't always go well when we don't. Sometimes people have established things, God's established ways that work, and there's a reason to follow that. Let's talk about, since it's living wisely, what's wisdom? Somebody give me a good definition of wisdom. Go ahead, David.
Well, there's 2, 3 thoughts. Well, first thing that comes to mind is I've tried to say serving God or trying to do what He wants us to do.
Yeah.
And part of it is what we learn throughout our lives. And trying to pass on to the others.
Anybody else got it? Yeah, knowledge.
Wisdom is knowledge that comes with age.
So, I got to looking, and we've got intelligence is not the same thing as wisdom. Some people are just born smarter than others. That's just a reality. Same way with some people are taller or shorter or faster. You know, there's a lot of people that could sit on the couch and eat potato chips and wouldn't have any trouble outrunning me. And I could train and train and train, and I'm never going to outrun, you know, some of these professional athletes. It's just not going to happen. The genetics aren't there. Same way with intelligence. We've kind of got what we've got. But then you've got education. And no matter how intelligent you are, if you educate yourself, you can get more knowledge. But there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom's being able to apply that knowledge. You know, we can both know the same thing. Two people can understand gravity, and one of them jump off the cliff. They had the same knowledge. The guy that was a little more wise didn't jump off the cliff. And so, keeping that in mind, there's a, well, we're going to jump into it. We're going to start here. We're in Proverbs 14, verse 8. The sensible person's wisdom is to consider his way, but the stupidity of fools deceives them. We're going to break that into the before and after the comma. The sensible person's wisdom is to consider his way. It means that we stop and think. We don't just act. And that can be stopping to think about the consequences of how it's going to affect us or other people, or whether it's in God's will. It's not living strictly from a selfish, I'm just doing what feels good, what I want to do. The second part of that, but the stupidity of fools deceives them. I have been known to be convinced that I was right. I've dealt with people that were convinced they were right. You ever known a know-it-all that's always right? Mm-hmm. We all have. That's not wisdom. Wisdom's being able to have learned from mistakes, things that you've done wrong. When you're able to learn from the mistakes of other people, that's another step. Or some people are even able to read a book, to read their Bible, and discern wisdom. I've been stuck in that has to learn the hard way category for a long time. But I'm trying to start learning from other people. Whether it's from Garland, or from Bob, or Jerry, my wife. There are people that know more than I do, or who have a different experience, that I don't have to try that out to find out it wasn't a good idea, or to find out that there's a good way to do something. Can somebody read verse 15?
The inexperienced one believes anything, but the sensible one watches his steps.
The inexperienced one. There's that saying, green, wet behind the ears, you know, that you don't know yet. And some people never outgrow that. But that's what wisdom is experiencing and learning how to apply that, to think about it. But the sensible one watches his steps. It's back to thinking about what you're doing or where you're going. So we can apply that in all kinds of areas in life. We can apply that to, you know, our education, our work, or our lack of it. If we want to go somewhere in life, if we wanna do something as a young person, you know, you can apply yourself, or you can learn more about what it is you're interested in. And you can see what actions contribute to you getting where you wanna go. The same way with the relationship. You know, wisdom, this is hard for me, is sometimes keep your mouth shut. Isn't that hard for me? I was expecting some amens, but
I know the chuckles do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes wisdom, like I say, is knowing when to not say something. Other times it may be when it is time to say something. But it's being mindful of what the difference is. The sensible one watches his steps, thinks about what he's doing and where he's going. You know that old saying, foolishness or ignorance or stupidity, whatever, insanity, is to keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. If we don't ever pay attention to what we're doing, we get stuck in that rut and we keep having the same thing, whether it's bickering with somebody, butting heads with somebody, not being able to keep a job, or whatever our problem is. If we can learn to step back from it and look at what we can do. There are circumstances that are beyond our control sometimes. But if we can step back and look at what we can do and what our effect can be, we'll have a lot more effect than just whining and complaining. Going on to verse 9, can somebody read that for me? Verse 9.
Fools mock at making reparation, but there is goodwill among the upright.
We're going to break this one up at the comma again. Fools mock at making reparation. What's that tongue tied? How do you say that? Reparation. I still can't say it. Y'all get the idea. So we're going to talk about that word and what it means. In a legal sense, in court, that means making it right. And in the biblical sense, the history of that word there is, in that time, if you sinned against somebody, you sinned against God, and it was a clear thing, you were expected to make it right. So, if I went and stole Matt's chicken, it was expected that I was going to make it right. Whether I was going to pay him the value of that or get him another chicken, you have to work those details out. But this implies more than just making it right. It's going beyond that to salvage the relationship. Making it right is only fair. This reparation is going beyond that. It's paying some damages, is how we consider it in court these days. But the standard then was 20%. So I don't know how if you mark the price of the chicken up 20% or he gets some eggs for a year, I don't know. But you go beyond that to make it right. And we hear in our culture a lot, never apologize. Don't ever let them know you were wrong. That's not a biblical wisdom perspective. And I didn't particularly care much for this portion of the verse because after thinking about it, I got some people I need to apologize to and go out of my way to make it right. I hadn't stolen any chickens, but in our day-to-day, back to that, sometimes we get stubborn and we won't change and we won't listen. We can apply that to this as well, to make it right and to aim for healing, not just washing it, getting it off the board. That second part is, but there is goodwill among the upright. Goodwill, in the biblical sense, if you look back at the word stuff, it didn't mean just it's over. It meant there's a continued relationship and there's an acceptance. And so, whether it's been employees or children or whatever, or just because we knew we needed to apologize to somebody, you've all got this kind of apology. Sorry. You know, a hateful mean, I know I was wrong, but I'm not really sorry. I just know I need to be sorry. That doesn't do much to make Garland feel better about what's happened between us if I've done Garland wrong. Maybe a little bit. But what it's talking about here is that goodwill and that going beyond and having genuine remorse and being able to express that I'm sorry I did you wrong, and what can I do to make it right? What can I do to make it better? And sometimes people may tell you, you know, help me with this or let's do that. They may give you an opportunity, and you need to be willing to go through with that. Most time, people may just want to talk about it, or they may not. They may just want to say, you know, that's okay. Let's forget about it and move on. But you're putting it in their court to decide what to do. And most generally, when people have that, suddenly they feel a lot more merciful. Going back to wisdom, I don't know where it's at in Proverbs, but 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And we've talked about fear some before, and for those that didn't hear that, you know, my example talking about that fear of the Lord was electricity. And, you know, we don't think of being terribly scared of electricity. We use it all the time. The phone's recording, the lights are on, and praise God, we've got air conditioners, and, you know, it's a tool that we have, and we respect that. We've got a healthy respect for that, and we can use it. But we've got enough sense not to go stick a fork in a light socket or to use the telephone line as a jungle gym. That's the kind of fear of the Lord. It's a respect. It's an awe for what God can do and who He is. That's recognizing that God has a plan and that there's more to life than just us and our perspective. There's other people we affect, and that God has things that He's trying to accomplish. There's a bigger plan than us. Can somebody read verse 14?
The disloyal one will get what his conduct deserves, and a good one what his deeds deserve.
This one will be easy to jump over pretty quick. You get what you got coming, you know, and that you reap what you sow. But you can argue back and forth on that and say, well, life's not always fair. I don't think anybody's going to argue that point with you. They're awful naive if they are. You know, bad things happen to good people. And sometimes good things happen to good people. And I think back to that recipe where I'm cooking. I had the best of intentions. I really did. And I was trying to follow the recipe book. But things happen. And maybe it was my fault. But there's some times in life that that's the case. There's other times that the power goes out while you're in the middle of cooking. Or that there's a fire, something boils over, or it doesn't have anything to do with you. You know, somebody's car drives off the road and runs through the house. Things can and do happen in life, but that doesn't discount or make any less that recipe that we had for following it.
The recipe might have been not filled out just exactly the way it should have been.
There could have been some translation error. Yeah. You know, and sometimes that happens, and sometimes we need to pray for discernment because there are false prophets out there, whether it's in the church or in the education system or our culture is telling us this is the right thing to do. We can, with the best of intentions, make mistakes and go down wrong roads. With a good heart and good plans, and thinking that we're doing a great deed and really mess stuff up, like me in the kitchen. But if we'll pray for discernment and we'll look to the Word, He'll help us find that right path. But the disloyal one will get what his conduct deserves. You know, we don't always see it happen right now, but generally those people that are backstabbing, that are conniving, that manipulate, that are always, they want everybody to think the best about them, but that's not their intention. They've got other motives, and we all know people like that, and to some degree we all let people sometimes, but it always catches up with you eventually. People get tired of that, or people humor it. It may not even call you out on it. It may just humor you. But it cuts off those opportunities and that genuine affection, and that's not the person you choose to spend your time with, to work with, or to give an opportunity to if you're in a position to bless somebody. That's not the person that you're looking first to. On that other hand, and the good one, what his deeds deserve. There's always times that you didn't get the promotion because the boss's kid did, or because he was buddies with so-and-so, or there's always those times that things are unfair. But good conduct, whether it's good work ethic, honesty in relationships, is always rewarded in due time. And there are people that will take advantage of you. It's just a given fact, and it's back to that fools mock at making reparation. We feel like they're just going to take advantage of me if I show them my belly. You know, that's the wolves, dogs the weaker ones will come up if there's the alpha male in the pack, or female. We had a discussion about this morning. But they'll lay down on the ground and show you their belly. That's where the belly rub comes from, is they're saying, there's no need to eat me or whip me bad. I get that you're the big dog. They're showing submission to you, but there's some mean dogs out there that'll take advantage of that. But there's a difference between being willing to make something right with somebody and being willing to be taken advantage of. We're not called to be abused or to be taken advantage of. And some of us who don't like confrontation, this is a hard line to see. I don't like confrontation, and once I've admitted that I'm wrong or I've apologized, I might let somebody take advantage of me for 15 years because I feel bad about that. It's something that I'm having to learn to get through. Wisdom is that balance, that finding that middle ground, that experience that tells you where that's at. Talking about that, getting what you deserve in the good and the bad. Pop, who is Bonnie and Jared's dad, has this this saying, and I don't know where he got it from, I've heard it before, but that the people who work the hardest always seem to get the luckiest. You know, if you're putting yourself in a position to get lucky or to get blessed, it's a lot easier to have things fall in place if you're doing everything on your end. And the person who's not doing anything can just say, well, they just got lucky. And a lot of times they did. And sometimes that's just God's favor. Sometimes that happens to people who aren't doing right or living right too. But the odds are in your favor if you stack the deck in your favor, so to speak. Verse 10. Can somebody read verse 10?
The heart knows its own bitterness, and no outsider shares in its joy.
The heart knows its own bitterness. Nobody can know your pain the way that you do. There's just, we can have empathy for somebody, we can feel bad for them. That's not the same as having that hurt in your heart. The flip side of that coin, nobody can understand the joy that you've got. Can somebody tell me the difference between joy and happiness?
Happiness usually depends on circumstances.
Very good. Yeah. You can have joy even when things aren't going your way. It's a peace with God, and I would call it, in a sense, a confidence. It's knowing that you win in the end, that God's got you covered in the end. And you know what, I thought of sports and athletes, and we don't have much of that right now, so. But there are guys that you can see when they're down, their team's losing, they've messed up, or a guy blew a play. He knows it's his fault, he made a mistake. And some people that will just, it'll devastate them. They can't recover, and the rest of the game, they're just terrible. Their mind is shot, and they just spiral down, get worse and worse, just can't overcome it. And then you see some people that they look at that and they go, my bad, I messed up, let's move forward, let's do this. And it never occurs to them that even though they've just blown the lead and there's only a minute left or whatever the situation is, it never occurs to them that they're not going to win. That they've got that confidence and that peace that they know they can and will are going to go out and do. And it may be that they've got confidence in their teammates or their coaching. I think that all has to come together. But the same is true for us. It may be that we've gone through a bad season in our life, that we've had, whether it's health issues or a relationship problem or financial troubles, things that are beyond our control. COVID crashed the markets, and now my business just simply can't survive. Or whatever the case is, that's not happiness. That's not your moment of glee and joy and you're laughing and giggling and carrying on. It's a serious time. But we can have that confidence, that wisdom that comes from knowing through experience that we're going to get through this. And knowing that we've got a good team around us, whether that's our family, our church family, other people that care about us, our community. We've got people that are going to help us move forwards and get through this. It's a joy knowing in the end we're going to be all right. No matter how bad it gets, we're going to be all right. We've got a good coach. We've got Jesus representing us, and we've got God in the end. We're going to get through it. It's going to be all right. Verse 13. Even in laughter, a heart may be sad, and joy may end in grief. You know, when I read this 13, there was a man here in Canada not long ago who seemed like a happy-go-lucky guy. And some of his friends, I'd never met the man, I didn't know him. Some of his friends talked about how happy he seemed and how he was laughing and cutting up the day before. They'd seen him, they'd enjoyed, he'd been telling jokes, cutting up, but inside he was sad and despondent. You know, we put on that brave face. We can get out our mask and not let anybody know that we're hurt. That happiness can turn to grief in a hurry. We can be on top of the world and we're making tons of money in the stock market and our relationships are going good and there's a death in the family or there's the market crashes, whatever. Things can change really quick. Only God can truly know what's in our hearts and can truly anchor us in that and give us that joy that surpasses all understanding, that confidence to get through that. Verse 11, can somebody read 11, please?
The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the upright will flourish.
The house of the wicked. House here, you know, house is relative whether you live in a hut in Africa or Trump Tower. There's a lot of difference in house, but in this first part, it's talking about a house. And it's implying for here, a mansion is what I think it's talking about here. The house of the wicked will be destroyed. Now, David makes a good point. It's your heart, too. I hadn't looked at it that way. But, you know, that metaphorical house, what your life is like, whether you're the richest person in the world, if you're living wicked, you're living wrong, I don't think it's so much God's going to get you. Not in the short term. I think it's your consequences are going to get you. Self-destruction. We see it all the time. This person, celebrity, whoever, has got all the money in the world. You know, cars and swimming pools and 15 mansions and, you know, all the pretty people like them, all the powerful people like them. They've got everything going, and they implode. Their decision-making stinks. They're not applying wisdom and using those resources in a positive way. Things have a tendency to spiral and come undone. And that happens in our hearts too. You know, being wealthy does not mean that your relationships are all perfect or wonderful. When you're looking up, it all looks great. But no matter how high you get, there's always something more. And that's not where you get that joy or that peace, is from your circumstance. And so, again, they keep showing both sides of this. The tent of the upright will flourish. The tent. Saying it, you know, these were nomadic people that moved around and they camped out full time. They lived in tents and, you know, had the tendency for the people in the mansion to look down on the people in the tent, just like we still have that in our society. It's a natural thing. He's saying it doesn't matter what you have in life, whether you have lots of material possessions. If you're upright, you're living right, and you're applying wisdom in your relationships with those around you, in your work ethic, in what you're doing, there'll be rewards for that. People will enjoy being around you, and you get that joy from your relationships. When you work hard and do a good job, maybe not all people will appreciate that, but people will appreciate that. When you're honest and you show integrity, people will appreciate that. It's back to that, the people working the hardest get the luckiest. People that are putting the most work into the relationships end up with the best relationships. Going on to verse 12 here. Somebody read that one?
There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death.
Fortunately, I didn't kill anybody with my cooking. It may have been questionable, and if they had eaten it, I did eat a little of it. I was determined to eat it. I worked hard on that. But there's a way that seems right to a person. You know, it seemed right to me to bam, a little more of this, a little more of that, and really spice it up. It seemed right, but it wasn't. And the same way when we get overly wrapped up in our emotions, God made our emotions. It's not wrong to be emotional, but we've got to balance that with wisdom and judgment. And when we get too wrapped up in our emotions, I need to show of hands. Anybody ever said anything that wish you hadn't? You know, it's a given. You know, it seems right to us at the moment. We were done wrong. It wasn't fair. They deserved it. It seems right to us at the time. Same way with whatever it is I'm going to really enjoy. And it doesn't matter if it's sexual impurity that we talked about last week, drugs, stealing, eating a whole tub of ice cream, whatever our weakness is. It seems right to us because that's what we want. It seems right to the flesh. It seems right to a man. But that doesn't make it good for us. It doesn't make it a wise decision. And its end is the way to death. It's back to thinking about what we're doing, not just going through the motions. It's thinking about the effects that we have on ourselves and on others, and what kind of witness we are. And so it sounds real good to just say, let's go live wisely. I think we've got to dig just a little deeper than that. How do we get there? You know, Solomon prayed for wisdom. God gave it to him. We talked about ways that you can get wisdom, to get that education, to invest your time in wisdom. All through Proverbs and Psalms, it's talking about pursuing wisdom and chasing wisdom, and that there'll be these great rewards, and that it's better than riches. If you've got wisdom, you know how to get it. Yeah. You know how to get that riches, or whatever, because you've got the base. It's more valuable than any side effect. You know how to cherish your relationships if you've got wisdom. So you can learn it through reading your Bible, looking for wisdom there. There are other people that have more wisdom than us. Maybe not in all of us, but we all have somebody that we can look to for wisdom and advice, that we can go to learn something. Now, Garland's been teaching me about grass. He doesn't know it, but I keep asking questions because I want to know. there's things that we can learn from other people if we learn to value what they have. Even if we see shortcomings in other people, that doesn't mean they don't have something valuable or wisdom that we can gain. There's wisdom in different areas. And we can learn from our mistakes, from the mistakes of others, and apply that. I want to close with a verse out of James. It's very practical. I think I've told y'all before, I really like James because it's written for somebody simple and immature, so that's me. James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. Without reproach means he didn't get on to us for asking. There are people who have no patience for questions and will get on to you for asking or wanting something. God's not like that. He wants to help us grow. He's the teacher. He wants to help us grow. He's given us His Word to look to it. And if we'll pray and ask for it and seek Him diligently, He promises He'll be found by us. Let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for loving us and for caring about us and for not giving us what we deserve, for having mercy with us. For giving us grace and giving us what we don't deserve and blessing us in spite of ourselves. And I thank you that wisdom is one of those gifts that you make readily available to us. And I pray that you'll help us to have the humility to seek it and to look for it in one another and in your word and from you. And Lord, give us wisdom. Give us a good heart towards one another. Thank you for loving us. In Jesus' name.